words intersect your actions. Abraham Lincoln said, if you want to see the character of a man, don't give him a stressful situation. Don't put him in a bind and watch him get out of it. Give him power and watch what he does with it. Character is what you do for somebody, and that person cannot in any way give you anything. It's what you do for someone that you cannot gain from that person. It's what you do when you're home alone. Okay? It's what you do when you're by yourself. Character is not your intentions or your thoughts about. It's mostly what your actions are and how they add up with what you say you believe and do. Does that make sense?
That's good.
Character has no greater impact on anything, I believe, than your reputation. Your reputation is 100%, in most cases, tied to your character. Okay? Now, at this point, you're probably going, Frank, what are you talking about? That idea of bringing on the baboon probably sounds pretty good right now. Character has a very funny way of rewarding a man, or I should say nature has a very funny way of rewarding a man in exact accordance with his character. And we've seen this. You may not realize it. You see somebody that has a lot, they do really well, they have success, their character sucks, they crash. We see this in famous people lots of times. That's who they like to pick on. I'll stand up here and tell you I can speak for myself in that regard. A lot of success, a lot of character not lined up right, things go bad. Nature has a very funny way of rewarding somebody in direct accordance with their character. Does that make sense? Okay. And the interesting thing about this, we've all been, everybody here has been in a sales environment sometime, been hired on for a sales job. Is that correct? Has any of you ever had to do a sales test? They say, here, go sell that car, and then I'll hire you. Or go make this appointment, and then no one ever does that. I've never been in that situation. I've been in a situation that said, tell me the pen. But I'm talking about an actual test. I never have. But every sales job I've ever had, either when I've been hired or not too long after there, I've had a personality test, a character test. I almost thought I was having a psychological exam once. Okay? And why is that? Because your character is what you really are. I can hand in a resume that looks, I can make most of it BS and half of it. I come from Alaska. I was in a car business for 12 years. Prove me right, prove me wrong. Knock yourself out. Try that one on for size. I can say anything I want to. You couldn't prove me wrong if you wanted to. I sit in front of you for 10 minutes. You're going to figure that part of me out real quick. You're going to figure out what I really am. Do you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I believe, and we talked about this a little bit before, I believe that business is alive. I believe that it is a living, breathing entity. I believe that it multiplies, it grows, it consumes energy, it produces things, it provides life, like the pond that you talked about. If you have a bunch of water in a gravel pit with nothing in it, it's just water, it's pretty much dead. But you have frogs, you get a little bit of muck in there, all of a sudden things start growing. That's what business is. Business starts out as one guy and an idea, and all of a sudden it's become a life force for people to live on. When you go to the grocery store, you are taking the benefits of a living, breathing entity that's called business. If that's true, I believe that business has a character. And I believe that the character of that business boils down to those things that are very small, but they aren't very small, that person told me, hey, thanks for the little things. And those little things on a business standpoint are us. Pete is not the character of this business. The character of the people he has that are day in, day out on the phone. When he's on the phone talking to a customer representing himself, absolutely he is. Certain parts of him dribble down, don't get me wrong. But the character of a business is the people in it. And in our environment here, being and maybe I'm off course, but I think we feel like we're the engine that drives this thing. We're setting the appointment, we're making the list to set the appointments off of, with sales guys throwing in the two. All that goes away. All this goes away. So we're even more involved in the character. If you take your car to the shop and you say, my car's not running well, or if you're in a race, let me put it to you this way, you're in NASCAR and you go to the garage and you're like, I don't have any horsepower out of my car, they don't say, let's look at the paint job, it might not be smooth enough. They go right to the motor, right? Cylinders, that's us. Okay, to kind of bring that point home a little bit. So if we're a living, breathing thing, and think about this, character affects nothing greater than your reputation. He and I know of a garage that's fantastic. They have an amazing reputation. The people that work there, I believe, for their profession, have great character. They're extremely, and we don't need to get into what all that looks like, but they're honest, they're hardworking, they've done us some cool, they took care of us, they said that they were going to do. What they said and what they did intersected exactly where we wanted them to be. Oddly enough, that kind of looks like a target. Throw that out there. All right. So, remember the cup, and the ruby, and the diamond, and me, and the straight ass baboon that's probably smarter than me, better looking. What's the difference between them? You said energy. Well, interestingly enough, almost. But this cup doesn't have much character. I submit to you that there's no difference at all. Everything in the universe is made out of the exact same thing. Everything. Everything. And it's not theoretical. We've seen it, touched it, messed with it. Everything in the world, in the universe, is made of three things, and we're not going to get into deep into, which I love, but deep into particle physics, and we're going to talk about quarks and quasars and things that they have found with 38-mile super colliders that have only been around for a millisecond. But everything other than those is in the universe is made of exactly the same thing. They are made of electrons, neutrons, and protons. And that is as small and as little as it possibly can get. There's nothing smaller. Okay? And the smallest of those elements does the greatest of things, which is called hydrogen. It's the smallest, lightest elements. Okay. You take protons and neutrons, and you put them together, and you smash them together, and you have a certain number of electrons that match up with the number of protons you have running around, and you have voila, whatever it is. H2O means you have water. Carbon, you, we all have the same thing. Okay? It's all electrons. That, you're exactly correct. The difference between the cup of water and the diamond that I don't have, and that striped-ass baboon is much smarter than I am, is how they collectively, what their character is, and how it's the same stuff, just smashed together. Yeah, we have the scientists not been able yet to just randomly make any of this stuff and get to the next level. We're not talking about the origin of life, but the fact of the matter is that it's electron, proton, neutron. When you really get down to it, most of that is space, just empty space. Okay? It's always the small things, and they make huge differences. Character, like us, or the character of a business, sometimes it's not, it can be built. A business, you build a business, and you can build character. That's what I love about character, is that you can, some of us have it, some of us had it, but it can be built. It's the reason that you are where you are. It's very, very tiny. Those little tiny molecules, you put them together in a certain way, and they have amazing character, more than you can possibly imagine. Okay? Character is the difference between what the ruby and the glass and you, but it's also the difference between, as a business grows and a business entity, between what its capabilities are. Because it's the smallest of character that unlocks the maximum amount, or can unlock the maximum amount of potential. I'm not talking about changing your entire world one thing at a time. If you're like, I want to be in a better place, you're going to go home and do drastic, amazing things, because you might not have to. And if you think I'm crazy, does anybody here know what heavy water is?
Lack of neutrons?
Now, heavy water is the reason that Nazi Germany did not win World War II. In 1933, they discovered fusion. They realized that if you get things down to its basic and you take this certain molecule and you take a neutron and you slam it into the nucleus of a uranium-238 molecule, it goes crazy and it blows up and it releases a phenomenal amount of energy. Okay? Those forces that hold neutrons, electrons, and protons together, that character of that is extremely strong. Okay? When you broke it apart, they realized, oh my goodness, this is a massive amount of energy. And scientists all over the world, pretty much at the same time, figured out, oh, yeah, if you learn how to harness that, you got a big bang. There was one particular physicist who wrote letters in 1933, you can imagine how long that took to get out, to people telling him, please don't publish any of your works. There's this crazy guy over here in Germany that would love to get a hold of that. Heavy water. Funny thing is about an atomic bomb, is what we're talking about, is you got to harness that energy to some degree. What you do is you blow this thing up, protons go, or neutrons go spitting all over the place, and they slam into something else. The odd thing is that you actually have to slow those neutrons down a little bit. You got to capture that energy. Now, I don't know why or how it works. I'm not going to show you a diagram of how to build a bomb because I can't. All right? But I know you have to capture the energy, and there's basically two ways to do it. The Germans decided heavy water was the way, and they were right. And heavy water, this thing that unlocks the most phenomenal energy source we as humans have ever known, this thing that literally changed our lives forever, the first time we ever detonated one, that powers nuclear submarine, that cures cancer, this whole concept comes, heavy water is when you take an extra neutron, one of the three things that everything is made of, and you tack it on to hydrogen. This extra neutron, you tack it on to hydrogen. And that, for some reason, slows those little neutrons that are zipping around, slamming into other neutrons down just enough to coagulate or concentrate that energy and make a massive, massive explosion. Heavy water. In Norway, they had 428 kilos of this junk, and they shipped it under great secrecy out of Norway so that the Germans weren't getting it. If the Germans had had that, then they had everything else they needed, and they would have made the bomb. It would have been catastrophic, obviously. Which is funny to me, because it occurs naturally. You can't tell the difference of it. If I had a cup full of it, I could drink it. It doesn't make any difference. It barely has an effect on me. It's kind of around there anyway. It wasn't something that got built, it was something that got discovered. And that discovery unleashed a tiny little thing, the smallest of things that you can unleash, that became an absolute power. They harnessed and discovered the character of one of the simplest element in the universe, which is hydrogen, with the smallest little thing, and went, that's just enough to make a huge, massive difference. It's character. The character of that water was infinitesimally different, but amazingly powerful. And that's going to be the difference of the character of us, not only with our own lives, but as a build. Right now, there's a buzz going on. The bell is ringing. The place is a little bit louder, thank God. There's this thing going on, and it's a very little thing. It's a very small thing. It's the same customers, it's the same phones, it's the same list, it's the same, not much has changed. And I don't know if we could all put our thumb, but it's a character of the group. That's why Jody asked me to talk about it.
Changing things.
Okay? It's the smallest of things, and it's the smallest of things that can do an amazing thing. And I'll tell you this, I am not, again, I'll say this one more time, I am not where I am. I'm not even where I was. And I believe that your character is exactly, what you get is exactly in accordance with your character. I also believe this. You do not attract what you want. You attract who you are. Think about that. You attract who you are. And so, if you're happy with where you're at, you probably are attracting the right types of people. If you're not, you're probably not, and it's not their fault. You see, character's not talent. It's not your abilities. It's not your natural talents. It's not unique to any one person. It's all the same. LeBron James and I go basketball, he's going to school me. We get on cross-country skis, he's going to break a leg. We sit down and sell cars, and I think I'm going to win that one. But we match up, we start talking about character, it doesn't matter, I don't care who you are. It's the same. But it has the power, that is the nucleus, if you will, of your person and your being. And you change that, you change the nucleus of yourself, even a small little bit. And the funny thing about it is, if they weren't looking to find an energy source, I would have never realized, hey, we can build a bomb, which I don't know, maybe that was better, but depending on how you look at it. Okay? I believe in three things, guys. I believe emphatically. You're born, you didn't have anything to do with it. For most of a little bit of your life there, you didn't have any choices. You're going to die, you can't do anything about it. In between, there are two types of experiences. I should write this down. There are two types of experiences. The ones you have control over, the ones you don't. And I believe that you are ultimately, absolutely responsible for the experiences that come along the way that you have control over. And maybe you don't seize them all because the Lord knows we can't. I don't believe that we can do the right thing or do the good thing all the time. But the little thing, you start with the little thing. Maybe you show up to work just a little bit earlier. Maybe I am just a little bit less. Maybe I don't get quite as distracted as I like to do during the day. It makes big differences. Okay? That is all I know about the shrimp business.
Where's that? Spell controversy, believe only.
Really good.
Good job. As always, Frank. Well done.
Honest there.
Questions and,
Speeches.